Today we're going to talk about similar figures and how we use them in relation to finding perimeter and area. The first thing I want to go over is a couple things we need to know about similar figures. And you're going to hear me say this next part over and over and over again. It's angles are congruent, sides are proportional. So every single time we have two similar figures, their angles will always be congruent and their sides will always be proportional. And a shortcut way that I write this is ACSP. And that's just a reminder that angles are congruent, sides are proportional. And so it's just a good thing to write in the corner of your paper whenever you're doing one over similar figures. The next thing you need to know is we always set up a proportion to solve for the missing sides. And we've already done that. That is just line equals line. And we will take our units and say it's side over bottom. Our sides have to be side by side on the top and our bottoms have to be together on the bottom. This is always going to be grouped by shape. So this will be triangle 1 and this would be triangle 2. Now that we've talked about the things that we need to know, let's try solving a problem with this, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write my ACSP, and that's because angles are congruent, sides are proportional. Now, notice that we have two rectangles, and it says a photo measuring 4 inches by 6 inches was shrunk down to 5 inches by X inches. What is the area of the shrunken photo? Notice, what is it asking for? It's asking me for the area. Can I automatically find the area of the shrunken photo? No, I can't. I have to find that missing side first. So I'm going to need to set up a proportion. So I'm going to do line equals line, and I'm going to go with S for sides and B for bottom. Side over bottom. So on my first one, rectangle 1 is going to be 4 on my side and 6 on my bottom. Same thing with rectangle 2. It's going to be side of X and then my bottom of 5. I'm going to cross multiply. 4 times 5 is 20. And then I have to divide by my random number, which is 6. How many times does 6 go into 20? It goes in there 3 times, which gives me 18. Subtract. I have 2 left over. I have to put my decimal, then bring down a 0, which gives me 20. It goes in there 3 times, gets me 18. Subtract. I have 2 left over. What's going to happen? This is going to repeat, 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 repeat. So my answer is X equals 3.3 repeating inches. But it doesn't want that. Go back to what it wanted. It wanted the area. Well, I know the area of a rectangle is A equals length times width. So I have 5 times 3.3 repeating. And for multiplying purposes, I'm going to say 3.3. So we have to take 3.3, just multiply it by 5. So 5 times 3 is 15. Carry over my 1. 5 times 3 is 15 plus 1 is 16. I have 1 decimal hop. What happens at the top has to happen at the bottom. So I have an area of 16.5 inches squared. And that was my answer. Well, I don't know about y'all, but I happen to like rectangles a little bit better than triangles. To me, they're easier to deal with. But knowing the star people, I don't know why, but they just like to throw triangles at us. 7th grade test, you will see a ton of triangles. Don't know why, but it happens every year. So let's practice with some triangles. First thing, I'm going to write ACSP because I know angles are congruent, sides are proportional. And I'm going to have to find the missing sides. So I'm going to set up my proportion. Line equals line. And I have X, which is going to be my side, over my, I guess then I'm going to call it slant, which is 20. So I'm going to have x over 20, and I need to do the same thing for the other one. I have 6, and that matches my x, so it's going to have to go on top. Side, it's pretty easy. But I have 2 left over. I have 10 and I have 8. But I know that I'm dealing with my slant. That is one of the reasons I always write down a label, if you will, so I know which ones match. So 20 and 10 match, so that means it is 6 over 10. Now, I just have to cross multiply, so 20 times 6 is 120, and I then have to divide by 10. 10 goes into 12 one time with 2 left over, and it goes into 20 2 times, and that makes it even. So what does x equal? X equals 12. Notice I did not put a label on it. That's because they didn't give me a label. If they do not put a unit in the problem, then you do not need to write that in the answer. But if they put inches, then you need to put inches. There are 2 more kinds of triangles that I want you to look at. And this one is one thing that they like to do sometimes. They like to flip our triangles. Notice that this one's pointing up and this one's pointing down. Well, when we're trying to label these sides, bottoms, things like that, it makes it really hard to do. So one thing that I always do on these is I will redraw the triangle. I'm going to make it easy on myself. I'm going to keep the first one the same. A, B, C, it looks exactly the same, only theirs was a little bit neater than mine. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Notice the pointy part right here with X. I'm going to make that the top on this one. And it's still going to look the same as my other one, just a little bit smaller. So that means this was X. My straight part was Z. And my little corner over here that looks like 90, but I'm not sure is Y. So XY. The line segment XY was 12 and line segment YZ was 5. Now, when I set it up this way, it's really easy to tell that my 6 and my 6 match and that my Y and my 5 match. So now I'm going to set up my proportion. Line equals line, and I'm going to call it side and bottom. So my sides are going to be 6, and my bottom is going to be Y, and on my other triangle, my side is 12, where my bottom is 5. Now I have to multiply across. 6 times 5 is 30. Then divide by my random number, which is 12. 12 goes into 30 2 times, which gives me 24. I have 6 left over. I have to put my decimal points and bring down a 0. Well, I know that 12 goes into 60 exactly 5 times. So that tells me x equals 2.5. Easy peasy. Okay, so the last one we're going to look at is actually a triangle inside of a triangle. And they call these nesting triangles because it's nestled inside of the other triangle. Weird, I know, but it's not hard. It's just kind of awkward to do. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually draw an X in right here because they forgot to put it, but that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that back end of the big triangle. And I'm going to draw my triangles. Notice right here I have a little triangle, and I'm going to draw him first. And so that's going to be A, B, C, so 14 and 10. Then I'm going to draw my bigger triangle, and it goes all the way from up here to back here. What is that going to make that side? Well, I have 14 and I have 8. Well, 14 plus 8 is 22. So now let's draw my triangle. I'm going to draw it much bigger, and that's going to be A, D, E. I did not put that middle bar that was 10 because that's the back half of my triangle. It has nothing to do with the big triangle. So we decided that A to D was 22 and that we were going to label this back one X. Well, now that I have my 2 triangles drawn, I need to set up my proportion. So I'm going to do this one the same as I've done all my others. line equals line. Well, notice that both of these are sides. I don't have a side and a bottom or anything like that. So it doesn't make much sense for me to label this side. So I'm going to label it my left side and my right side. I'm going to do that for both of them. Much easier to differentiate. So on my pink triangle, I had a left side of 14 and a right side of 10. On my blue triangle, I had a left side of 22 with a right side of x. I'm going to have to multiply across. Well, 10 times 22 is 220. I'm going to have to divide by this random number over here, which is 14. How many times does 14 go into 22? Well, that's easy. It only goes in there once. 22 minus 14 gives me 8. Bring down my 0. How many times does 14 go into 80? Well, I know 14 times 5 is 70, and if I put one more in there, it's going to be too big. So up here it's going to be 5, and that means I'm going to take away 70, which gives me 10. Now, I don't have any more zeros, so I'm going to have to add my decimal point and bring one down. Well, to go in 100, I know that 5 was 70, so it's either going to be like 7 or maybe 8. So let's come over here and let's check it. I'm going to say 14 maybe times 7. 7 times 4 is 28. Carry over my 2. 7 times 1 is 7 plus 2 is 98. Well, if I go any more, that's going to be way over 100. So I know that I'm going to use my 7, which gives me 98. That's going to give me a 2. Well, now I can add another 0, and it'll go in there one time. But that's really not necessary because this 7 right here, that will just round. It'll 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. So I'm just going to leave it 15.7. Nothing too bad. Your assignment for today is going to be just like this. It'll have one of each kind of these triangles plus some rectangles like we did at the beginning. But one thing it's definitely going to have is it's going to have area and perimeter. So you're going to have to take all the steps that we just did and then find the area of the shapes, or we're going to have to find the perimeter of the shape. So keep in mind that these are going to be two-step problems.